Sup, everyone? Thanks for joining us for another game cast. I am one of your hosts, Kitty, and with me is Tess.
Also known as really sad Tess.
Yes, this week's been rough. Uh, rather rough. Typically, this is the moment where we talk about things that we did this week, whether we watched anime, read comics, played video games. Um, just kind of talking about things that we've done that are exciting or at the very least worth noting.
Hmm.
And all of our plans, well, most of our plans, I should say, were kind of like thrown out the window uh, because of the news of Chadwick Boseman. And yeah, it's just been 2020, man. I think that I'm in this weird place where life is like there's gonna be bad things and there's good things, and you know you kind of take the good with the bad in terms of just living, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, but 2020 feels like well for us, even 2019, you and me personally, it feels like it's
Yeah.
just bad news after bad news after bad news
Yep.
um
Just
in
kept
our
coming.
families and in the world. And yeah, it's been rough. And so we kind of
Yeah.
want to share our thoughts on some
Yeah.
things, talk about some things, but we want to also end it on a positive note. So we're gonna we're not gonna stick to one thing for too long, but
Right.
we do want to express how we felt after we you know, learned of the news. Um,
Yeah.
I actually woke up to the news,
Right.
um,
I
and
texted you.
right, you texted because I was like, at first, and this is bad, but I was thinking like when I got the text, she was like, we gotta talk about Chadwick. I was like, what did he announce something? Did he, you know, do we find out, why he was, maybe he has a movie role? Because that was my thinking at one point when he
Hmm.
was, losing weight, that he has a movie role coming. And so maybe he announced it, and now, all the craziness that was happening when people, because he had the Instagram post, maybe people are eating their words right now.
Hmm.
And I totally want to talk about that, but that's not what it was.
No.
And so I went and I typed in. I didn't even get to finish his whole name, and it was like the first thing that popped up that he had passed, and I was like, wow, like really?
Yeah.
And then you're reading about it, you're finding out that he passed because of colon cancer, and it's like he was diagnosed 4 years ago, or years ago, and he had been in all these films since then, and it's like what, like it was like waking up in the
Yeah.
twilight zone.
Yeah.
um
That's exactly what it felt like.
and so and I was late because apparently the news broke the previous day,
Hmm.
and I just
Friday evening. It was
right.
Friday night. Yeah.
And I was not on after I shut everything down. I was done for the day. I did not get back on, so I didn't get on Twitter or anything. So I was just complete audio silence or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be,
Hmm.
and it just rocked everything.
Yeah.
Um, and
Completely.
I don't want to monopolize the time or anything, but I'm just letting you know like where my head was at when I heard. Um, but yeah, I got a text from you, like that
Yeah.
we have to talk about it.
It
How did you hear about it?
so just Friday night, Friday I worked and I worked late. I was off on the weekend because Saturday is my birthday, and so Friday I remember working late and getting home, and I shut down too. I don't like to look at my phone anymore after a certain period of time. I'm tired. I spent all day looking at a computer screen. I spent all day talking to people. I spent all day doing things for people and walking around in heels. I'm tired. And I don't get to eat when I'm at work. So I'm tired.
Right.
And came home, and I think that after like taking my day off and changing my clothes and making sure my dog gets fed and sitting down on the couch and like I think I watched maybe a little TV, but I remember going to bed early. I do. I remember going because I was exhausted. I remember going to bed early, and I woke up the next morning, I picked up my phone, um, and Google News is on my top screen or whatever. So I just and I what I saw when when you scroll down on the top of your phone and you get your little highlights, and I
Right.
scrolled down the top of my phone, and so Google News said these words. It said Chadwick Boseman dies AGA, and the word was cut off. So I was like, dies again. So I was like, Chadwick Boseman dies. I thought it was a movie, like
Oh,
I
okay.
was like, what, Black Panther died again? And then anyway, so I press it, I click on it because if it's anything about Chadwick, you already know. I mean, like all things aside, we've talked about Chadwick on the show before, and I I refer a lot of things because my sister Lillian knew him, and so I always we've made jokes. If anybody wants to go back and listen to the recordings, I've made jokes about Chad, like Uncle Chad, and anyway,
Right.
moving on.
Right.
And so if I see him in anything on my phone, I'm like, oh, okay, and I click on that, and so I saw this and I read it, and it was serious, and it was real. There was no faking this. This was real, and I saw this and it said Chadwick Boseman dead at 43, and I flipped shit. I did, and I was like, "What?" And I'm screaming, I'm yelling at my sister, and I'm like, "Lillian, like, and then she's like, "I already know," because my other sister had texted her last night, and so I was just that for the rest of the day. I was like, "Seriously?" And I was just very upset. I was really, really upset because last year, I think it was at the end of the year, after we lost your mother-in-law, my aunt. Or prior to that. I can't really remember pinpointing it, but I remember seeing him on TV. And
Right.
I remember saying, "What?" I remember my niece was there because she remembers me saying this. And I said, "What?" I said, "What's wrong with Chad?" I said, "What's wrong with Chad? Yo, he looks like he has cancer. What's going on?" And I remember saying that out. It was all my family. We were all together. I remember my niece. I remember Lillian being there. I remember my older sister Golda. And I was like, "Hey, what's wrong with him? Why does he look like?" I said, "He looks like he has cancer." And then Lillian said, "He's doing it for a role." And I said, that don't look like no role." And I remember being very adamant about this because I know what cancer looks like.
Right.
And I also know what people look like when they lose weight for roles. Like we've seen people lose weight for roles and still look healthy. And that's not what he looked like. And I remember saying that out loud, like yelling. I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Somebody give him a bird. What's going on?" I was concerned. And then I remember her saying, "He's doing that for a role. It's for a role. It's for a role." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not okay with that. And I don't believe it." But of course, we go back to our daily lives. And then when the previews for the Defy Bloods came out, and then and he looks all thin and everything, and then I remember her saying, and other people saying, "Oh, see, look, he was doing it for a role," and I was like, "Did he have to get that thin for a role?" I wasn't buying it, but since everybody around me kept saying, "Oh, it's for a role, it's for this role," and I was like, "Okay," and went about our lives, went about our daily lives. So when this hit, I was just angry. Well, there's nothing anybody can do. It's not like we had the power to change anything. I was
Right.
just very upset. I was very upset. I had a lot of feelings, just a lot of emotions kind of just came over me that I'm waking up in the morning at, on my birthday. And I'm like, and the first thing I see is somebody that like I truly admire is, has passed away. And then to find, and he's 43 years old, and to find out that it's cancer. And I'm just like, A, I don't like being right about stuff like that. That's number one. And then B, I'm freaking tired of cancer. I'm over it. I really, really am. I just can't deal with it anymore. And I'm like, I'm still grief processing.
Right.
And so this just made me feel a certain type of way. And it made me feel a certain type of way. And then, I remember talking to my sister because, she knew him. And so it was like she knew him back, when he in New York and whatnot. And he used to always shop at the bookstore that she worked at, and so they used to always talk. And so I was like, "Are you okay?" And it just was all very sad. And knowing that he was very private, and then learning, just like you said, learning that he has been battling cancer for this long, and nobody knew, and
Right, only
anybody
a
who
few
did knew,
people.
yeah, they're all sworn to secrecy. And what made me almost like really almost shed tears was when I read Ryan Coogler's tribute to him,
Mm,
because there are a lot of people who worked with him and a lot of people who were close to him who maybe even feel jilted, or maybe feel like they thought they were closer than they were and didn't even get to know that he was ill. And so the one thing about like situations like this where you feel like you feel like you haven't been told. I understand that people can, they're just like, and there's also the type of people who are like, I can't believe you didn't tell anybody, we could have been praying for you, type stuff. And there's so many things that go around, but I just felt like somebody was taken from me. And I didn't even know him personally, but I just felt again, like, once again somebody was taken from me, and I felt really empty. And
yeah.
yeah, that's just happened. And then I ended up breaking down at work yesterday because one of the residents at my building has cancer. I didn't know that. I just know that she walks with a cane. And then we were chit chatting, and she told me she has stage 4 cancer. And I was like, it just hit me right there in the heart. And she was like, every day above ground is a good one. And I was like, you right, you are so right. And then she's like, some days I'm tired and I can't fight. I said, girl, any day that you feel like you can't fight, you come call me and I will fight for you. Okay, if there's a day you feel like you can't fight, I'm gonna fight for you. And then she's like, you're about to make me cry. I said, no, no. And then she's like, okay, I'm leaving. And she walked away, and I just couldn't. I ran into the office and shut the door and just started bawling. It's just hard. It's too hard. It's too hard. And so I just kind of felt like this compounded grief for, you know, my aunt, your mother-in-law, for Chadwick, and for this woman who is sitting here fighting her darndest and still wearing a smile across her face and living her life every day, even though she knows that tomorrow is not promised. And I'm like, and I just feel like life is just unfair. I just feel like it's unfair. And I'm saying, when you have a birthday, right when somebody dies, and you kind of feel like you can't really celebrate, not because I can't celebrate because, oh, I shouldn't be happy, because I'm actually not happy.
Right, right.
So I've just kind of been feeling a certain type of way, and I've been distracting myself, because some distracting is kind of how I process things without trying to actually feel the emotion, because it's too overwhelming. And I've not even been really on Instagram. People are posting and doing all this stuff, and like every time I see something about Chadwick, I just close it. I
Well,
I,
well,
I
this,
honestly,
well, this
I'm
certainly doesn't help.
it doesn't help, but in a way, it's like I don't have to deal with it. I'm far removed enough. I don't have to deal with it if I just don't look at it. I know there are people who are actively processing this loss and are dealing with it, and I'm not. And you know how we use our Instagrams and we typically post something about somebody that we admire or care about, and I'm just like, I can't. I just feel like I can't. Maybe because I'm just not ready to accept it. I'm not. I'm literally not ready to accept this. I'm not. Eh,
Yeah,
I know
it's.
I have to. I'm an adult. I know I have to, but I just not ready, so I'm choosing not to. Maybe give me a few days.
I mean, it's all. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult. And I was a wreck. Not even gonna lie. I got it
Hmm.
and I looked it up. And you saw what I texted you back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I'm if we want to get let the audience know, I texted you at 9:22 a.m. and I said, "We have to talk about Chadwick Boseman." You wrote me back immediately, question mark, question mark. Then you wrote me back a minute later and said, "Fuck."
Yeah, that was to. There's a bunch of things with me. I guess in Black people in general,
Yeah.
there's a sense of community that we have, and this goes back, back to like slavery and beyond. But
Yeah.
there's a sense of community. So like there's a difference in terms of how we're grieving and how maybe other people might grieve, how
Yeah.
people might see him as a positive role model who was doing all these things for charity, while having cancer, going and helping in different, charities, going to hospitals to visit kids with cancer and all these things without letting people know. The fact that, I mean, he said that he wanted to play certain roles to show,
Yeah.
uh, and I'm paraphrasing, to show how, we could be great. He picked, or he wanted to play as, uh, Thurgood Marshall. He wanted to play as the Black Panther. He wanted to play
Yeah.
as, what I mean, like James Brown and whatnot. Like he wanted to be these characters for us. But even outside of like just being in roles and in film, he was doing a lot of good things behind the scenes
Yeah.
and in front of in terms of like, I don't want to say behind the scenes like it was a secret, but it was like I'm not just doing movie stuff and then going home. Like I'm
Yeah.
doing things to better us and better people and better the world even. And so a lot of different emotions. And I had to like not like I had to move in different places in my house strategically so my kids wouldn't see me cry because I didn't want to have to explain, um
Exactly.
because I don't think they need to. Oh, side note, for the people, so I like I said, mixed emotions, right? So there's sadness and there's anger, but my anger is directed at people, not Chadwick, and not necessarily what happened. The
Mhm.
people who are posting their children on social media for clicks, the people who have their kids sitting down and they have the figures all around, and the Black Panther figure is like it's almost like they're at a funeral and the kid is crying. There's something wrong with you. Let me
Yeah.
let me explain. Um, there's no reason I would tell my kids what happened right now.
Yeah.
The reason being is that they don't know this person.
Yeah.
This is something that I can explain later, sure, but right now they don't know them. You have to take into account like the pandemic and how that's
Yeah.
affecting people, mentally. You have all this racial tension, you have all this other stuff going on, and you want to tell them that one of their potential heroes in this case has passed away.
Yeah.
Why? This isn't because, especially when they're going to see the Black Panther in some other form. They're going to
Yeah.
see it in cartoons, they're going to see it, the Lego films, the whatever the case may be. They don't need to know right now this isn't a family member. And for the people who are like, because when it happens where someone like, you have a teen who's on the internet and they catch it, obviously you want to have a conversation, right? But I'm talking about the people who told their children, record or videotape them going through the trauma,
Yeah.
and then put it on social media for likes.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with you.
Totally.
You're exposing their trauma for likes. I don't understand what you were thinking. Telling my kids that their grandmother passed was one of the hardest conversations I had to have. If I don't have
Yeah.
to have these conversations, I'm not going to. This isn't
Yep.
this isn't Bambi. This isn't like, like I have to explain like, okay, in Big Hero 6, the brother dies and, the guy did it and, it's sad, but, the brother lives on and in these other ways. Like there's something to say about that. This isn't one of those times. I don't need to
Nope.
do that. And
Yeah.
I don't need to make them feel horrible because you're only doing it. You're only doing this as some weird, I don't know, some weird thing. And then especially the people who are showing their kids going through emotions and then they Photoshop tears on them.
Yeah. What the hell, man? What
Like
the fuck?
I want to square up. I want to so much. Like it's so, and then the people who are like, there's people who, they come out and they're like, well, all those people that were making fun of him, and it hurt when I realized this, but all the people who were making fun of him when he was trying to promote another something else positive, and they were talking about how, it's he looks sick and he's crack panther and he's been taking crack and these drugs, blah blah. And we have the people who are on the other side who are like, see, you were wrong, and you're saying all these things, you didn't even know he had cancer. And I'm like, all of you are wrong.
All of you are
Because
wrong. Yeah.
even if he was taking drugs, do we make fun of him or do we get him
Yeah.
help? Do we make fun of him or do we pray for him? Do we make fun of him or we encourage him to get better? Like it wouldn't have been cool if he was on drugs either. Like you're
No.
missing that. You're being
You're missing the point.
horrible, horrible people.
Horrible people.
Like I can't believe your tears right now. Because you're doing this whack shit. Like I don't understand where this comes from.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
anyways, let me pull back. So, yeah, I'm trying not to cry in front of my kids for the reasons I just went over.
Yeah.
Um and it's like, dang. And then as a personal side, there's the idea of cancer. And so for those who don't know, we talked about um my mother-in-law,
Your
but then there's
mom.
also the fact that my dad had cancer at one point and he had to go
Mhm.
get surgery. um I want to say my aunt recently had surgery because of it. My cousin has been going, I mean, I think he's fine now, but he had been going back and forth. He had
Yeah.
cancer, it went away, then it came back. Like, it's not new to me. And
No.
so this hits very different. Like you said,
It does.
I don't know, I didn't know Chadwick, but I respected what he did.
Yep.
And I looked at him like, like one of us, like our family. I also
Yeah.
like have dealt with this for a while, and yeah, there's an extra bit of sadness because of that. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that because of that, there's a different way of us mourning him is a little different.
Yeah. It is.
There's been some things, and I don't like to tell people how to mourn, as long as you're not hurting anyone or yourself. But you know, my white co-parts, or like brothers and sisters or whatever who are feeling away because of his death, I totally understand, but I don't think it's the same. And
Yeah.
I notice it's not the same based on how people react. And even with the black people who are doing the silly stuff, they're posting their kids. Um, for instance, there was an article that went up, I want to say not long after, like hours, maybe like an hour or two after his death, that the headline was like basically, what is Marvel gonna do now that Chad?
Who the fuck cares about Marvel? Like, what? Why is that even the thing? It has nothing to do with any. Like, I never even. That
Yeah,
was not even the first thought when I. I'm
it's not
angry.
even the last thought. It's not.
No.
It's not. It's not something I cared about. Like
No.
maybe eventually next year sometime I'll care about it, but I'm not. I don't care.
I
And
don't.
it was like something to get clicks. It was something to like, and it was so tone deaf. Like they didn't read the room at all. And a
No.
lot of us, we kind of spoke about. I'm not gonna say the site because I don't want. They took it down, and I don't want to give them any type of publicity,
Yeah.
or hate. I don't want people to go burn them down or anything. But it was tone deaf and it was tasteless and it was just like, seriously. And I see a little bit of it here and there. Like there's a couple of sites who are talking about potential movie roles that aren't available anymore. Um, and even though there's some other sites that are doing it, I feel like they're doing it a little bit more tasteful because the question is going to come up. This is never not going to be a thing because people are how they are. So
Hmm.
there's that. But like people are actively finding out. Some people have found out because of that article.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's just people are being terrible. Um, and I don't know if it's because the pandemic has everyone their brains inside out or whatever, but there's ways of handling things. There's ways of talking about things, and there's so many you know avenues that are just poor. Like you're not grieving properly. If I'm what I'm saying, like it's just not right. Um,
Yeah.
and so there, like I said, mixed emotions about what's been happening, or learning about his passing, how people are reacting to his passing, how people who aren't black or people of color, how they're responding. It's been a lot of
Mhm.
ups and downs, and I had to get through it. I had to teach. I had to work.
Yeah.
Um, but it's difficult. I commend any black person who can write something, who can articulate how they feel, during this time, and who can write about, Black Panther or Chadwick or any of the things that he's done and keep us sane, be sane. Um, Kudos to you. I can't do it. This is
No,
not something, because I've there are times where people would approach me like a DM or whatever. Hey, we have something that we kind of want to write about, but we want to hear it from a black person. And while that's good, typically, it's not good right now. At least not for me.
no.
I'm not feeling it. So yeah, those are those are turned down.
Mhm.
But it's rough. It's really rough. Uh, that
Yeah.
said, I'm glad that he was able to go with his family. That
Yeah.
I'm glad that the things that he were doing, because I wondered why he didn't say anything, right? And a lot of people who are maybe disabled or was dealing with an illness were saying that maybe he hid his illness because he wanted to keep getting roles. Because that's the thing, right?
No.
Like if you're sick, then people don't want to hire you. He
No.
might not have gotten to be Black Panther if he told someone that he had cancer because they're thinking sequel. Totally get that. I don't know if that's the case.
I
Uh,
don't think that is
it
the
could have
case.
been the fact that he wanted to not overshadow what he was doing with his illness.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's it.
because a lot of positive things came from the things that he did, you
Yeah.
know, and maybe he didn't want his legacy to be kind of overshadowed with that. And because if you think
Yeah.
about it, the way people are talking, it was a big shock about the cancer, but then a lot of people are still saying, "Oh, he worked through his cancer. He worked through these things. He did all this while having cancer." It's like it's cancer is being pushed underneath, and I think
Yeah.
he might have wanted it to go that way,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I
And
think, yeah, I agree with you.
you know what I mean? Like he kind of it's seeming like he might have wanted, like, you know what? I want people to talk about the good things I did and not about my illness.
My illness.
Um,
I don't want to be remembered for that.
right.
He's not going to be like he's not going to be remembered as somebody who was fighting cancer and then we all saw his last days because the thing is Chadwick did so much. He did so much, outside of just the amazing films that he brought us. I mean, just his dedication to charity and his desire to continue learning. Like just the fact that like when my sister had spoken about him, about how when she knew him and how he was just so inquisitive and he would always come to the bookstore. He was always reading and was always asking her about like they would just sit there and talk about books and just kind of have a good time. That's just the kind of guy he was. And I think that he knew, just like other famous people who have spoken out about their cancers, that every conversation was going to be about his cancer. And this is a young black man who's extremely successful and who represents so much to the black community. It everything that he would have done would have always had cancer attached to it. Like even let's talk about Alex Trebek. Mind you, Alex Trebek is old, okay? But you know what the conversation is behind next to Alex Trebek? It's like, oh yeah, Alex Trebek is still doing Jeopardy. Doesn't he have cancer? Doesn't he have pancreatic cancer? How's he doing? Oh, it's not about the role that he plays on his show. It's not just about Alex Trebek and Jeopardy. It's Alex Trebek and Jeopardy and cancer. What are they gonna do? What who are they
Yeah,
gonna get?
it's not
You know?
concern. It's more concerned about either the shock of what's happening, or
Yeah.
the the concern isn't him. The concern
Mhm.
is what's going to happen when he's gone,
Yep.
which is
Exactly.
trifling, really. I mean, and again, it's not to say that these thoughts never pop up. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But why are you expressing them the way you are? Like, why are you telling
Mhm.
people, like, what happens when do you think he wants to hear that right now? Like, I
Yeah.
think,
You don't want to hear that.
yeah, like I could totally understand, and why someone wouldn't want to bring that up. Well,
Especially you're young. You're young and you mean so much to so many people. You understand like what if him admitting that he had cancer ended up being a high factor in driving sales for Marvel? Because everybody's like, oh, I have to see this movie now. He has cancer. Like,
Right.
it's just it's I think he just wanted everything to be normal. He just wanted everything to remain as normal. Like, give himself, I don't know anything, and I know that the family has, like, some confidants are now speaking out. The ones who knew have now at least, like, said a little bit of things. At least I saw that on Google. And me, like I just said earlier, I'm not really willing to read anything right now. I don't
Right.
want to read anymore. I've had an like I just am saying, reading Ryan Coogler's tribute was enough. It was very painful because Ryan Coogler, somebody who really, really like loved Chadwick, didn't even know he was sick. Do you understand how painful that is to somebody who, when you feel like you're really close to somebody and you didn't even know, and you're just like,
Right.
whoa, because the loss is so grand, and and there's a real friendship there, a real friendship, and there's no knowledge. So I remember saying that to somebody that I was talking, one of the kids, probably one of my niece and nephews, and saying, did you know that Ryan Coogler didn't even know? And they were like, wait, what? But I'm like, but that also shows that Black Panther and Marvel is not Chadwick's whole life. He has
Exactly.
other things. He means other things. He represents other things, and he has other things in his life that he cares about and does. So, not being reminded, no, I shouldn't say not being reminded, but not having to talk about your illness every day, or have that be attached to you while you are still having things to accomplish, while you still want to accomplish things. Like, I understand it, but I do understand the need for privacy and secrecy. And on the other side of that, on the other end of it, the shock is too much. The shock is really bad, and especially,
Right.
everybody is is quarantined and dealing with whatever they're dealing with. So the shock was a lot. It's just a lot. It really, really is. As a Black woman, as a Black person, and somebody who is still, still on a daily basis processing the loss, of your mother-in-law, my aunt. And yeah, I'm in tears right now. But I'm still processing that every day. I'm still processing it, and I have so much trouble with this grief. It has it has taken me to a different place in my life. And 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 so when you see somebody else who is gone through something, and they're young and they're Black and they are doing their darndest and out there doing the thing, and meaning so much to us, that just gets ripped from this world so fast, and none of us knew. Like, that's why I'm like, at this moment, I'm choosing to not deal with it. I'm choosing to kind of ignore it. And I know in the long run that doesn't help, but it's helping me right now. It's helping me right
Right.
now, try kind of make it through every day, because I just am so sad. Every time I see his face, if I go on my phone and I see his face, I just automatically get so low. I am like, and like, if you look at the pictures when he's smiling, I'm just like, damn, that's my bro-in-law. Like, I'm like, that's how anyway, the story is there. Anyway, it's not even like funny anymore, to be honest. I mean, my nieces and nephew call him Uncle Chad, and it's like, it's no longer even funny, because he's gone. So, um it's just really traumatic, and I feel like it's traumatic for so many Black people. And then also, remember how I told you the whole thing about Black Panther, like, that I, out of my entire group of people that I knew, I was the one who was promoting going to the movie theater dressed up and all,
Right.
like, straight up, like, I was not joking. I was the ringleader in, like, all my 1050 Facebook friends or whatever, saying, "Hey, this is about to go down." And then I never went and saw the movie in the theaters. Like, everybody went and saw it without me, and I was like, "This was my idea. This was, like, literally my idea." I had, like, outfits picked out, and then everybody went and saw it without me. And it was, I should let me rephrase that. It's not like everybody went and saw it without me. The group of friends that I chose to go see it with kept having scheduling conflicts, and the one person who owed me a movie, who actually was supposed to take me, flaked because he's the flakiest friend in the world, and that's why I don't talk to him anymore.
Mm.
And then I kind of like got mad. I kind of had these emotions because I it and I'm not saying Chadwick is that, he's just identified as Black Panther. I'm talking about an experience.
Right, right.
And so and that I didn't get. And so I started thinking of all my friends who posted those pictures when they went to go see Black Panther and they all had their African clothes on, and I don't even have one. And I just like I just keep feeling robbed. I do. I feel robbed like on an hourly basis. So many things.
Yeah,
So
it's conflicting. I totally chose to go by myself on opening
yeah.
night. Just
Mhm.
like, and typically I do that anyways, but like
You do that anyway.
I
Yeah.
also don't I didn't want that to happen. Like that's happened with other films where you're waiting to go with somebody and they keep not showing up, and then they just like tell you like, hey, I went and saw it yesterday. You're like, wait, I was waiting. Like I could
I
have
was
went,
waiting.
you know. But yeah, it's like I said, it's tough. Prayers to the family, close
Yeah.
friends, and random black people who are grieving right now.
Thank
Um,
you.
and shout out to the people who are doing the right thing. They were showing Black Panther commercial free in different places, and there's a lot of tributes, like you were saying. Marvel, one of the artists via Marvel made uh, a awesome image of Chadwick graduating with Black Panther and a bunch of other like moments of his
Uh-huh.
life. Did an awesome job. I can't remember the artist's name off the top of my head, but he did a
Yeah.
super good job. Um, and yeah, there's just a
A
lot
lot
of
of
cool
art.
stuff in terms of
A
like,
lot of good art.
yeah, a lot of good things in terms of tributing, and there's a lot of love genuinely, uh,
Yeah.
for him. Um,
I saw the did you see the well, I don't know if you saw this picture, but there's this one guy, or I don't know, this one artist drew a picture of Kobe in his Lakers uniform, Black Panther,
I
in
saw
his
that.
in the Black Panther, and then Gianna, and then also Chi Chi DeVane, the drag queen.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so like, and I mean, some people may not know who Chi Chi DeVane is. But Chi Chi DeVane is like known as the dancing queen of Louisiana, an amazing drag queen. It was on RuPaul's Drag Race, and she passed away. Or, I'm sorry, Chi Chi she, but Xavion Davenport is his name, and he passed away from some I think it was just complications of some stuff that actually happened a couple months ago. Like he was in the hospital and his kidneys were failing, and then he got better and he was released, and then he ended up back in with pneumonia and then passed. And it's just so sad. So that picture, a lot of people might not know who the person in the dress is, in the golden dress with the big red hair. They may not know who that is, and I'm like, oh, whoever did that just like stole my heart. and and then it also made me extremely sad because it was like, here are four black people, just four out of the hundreds that have lives that have been lost this year, whether it's police violence or corona or whatever, but just those four that have touched people's hearts. And it's just too much. Like, as black people, I feel like we are suffering such major losses this year, and we just got to be here for each other to really really get through this, because it's hard. I'm struggling on a daily basis, and luckily we got to listen to some Brandy and Monica because it helped. it,
Right.
it helped a little bit, but I'm not even gonna lie, I was in my feelings listening to those songs, and that's why I kept writing on thing. I was like, this isn't fair. I had so many feelings, and they were sad feelings, like listening to some of this music, and I was like, Chad, it's a hot mess, a hot mess.
Yeah, and that was like not even um and we're gonna move on to the verses, but there was the like Cliff Robertson from the Trailblazers
Yep.
passed away too, and
Yes,
like
he did.
so black people are dealing with a lot of death. And it's like I said, it's been rough, and it's cool that amidst all the craziness that Tim and Swiss were able to do something kind of cool with this versus thing because it's been, like I said, this was the only reason I got on IG. Like I've been using it more often, but it's the only reason I got on because I wanted to
Yeah.
hear and see and kind of be in the moment with everybody, and that's what happened with Brandy and Monica. Like I saw you messaging me while it was going on, and I responded like you were saying, like I want them to play, certain songs or whatever, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm waiting for it too, but it was cool. Like it was cool to hear their music. It was cool to see them like healthy, and they both look great, and they're doing well. Brandy just released a new album,
Yeah.
B7, I think it's called, and from what I've heard is actually really. Not actually, like it couldn't be, but it's really good from what the songs that I've heard. Um, and so I was looking forward to this. I was like, you know what? I had already knew it was coming, but knowing I was gonna see this on Saturday night, uh, it was welcomed with all the stuff that was going on. And so
Yeah.
that was dope. I felt as if things were a little awkward because I know they had
Yeah.
tension years ago, and I don't
Yes.
know how far they've come in terms of settling that.
Yes.
Um, I don't. A lot of people are saying that there's shade there. That
There
they,
was shade. There was
I
a lot of shade.
I feel like Brandy's just mad goofy, like in a good way.
She
And
is goofy.
and I think she was trying to have a fun time, and I think Monica was a little reserved. And
Yeah.
I think they should have spoke beforehand. I think they should have spoke, and like Brandy kind of like like, look, I'm gonna be silly, and I'm gonna make you laugh. I'm trying to get you to sing. She kept
Yeah.
trying to get her to sing, and she wouldn't. And I think that their their differences kind of didn't work out in certain instances.
Yeah. It was
Um,
cringeworthy.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think Brandy didn't help either because
Nope.
um
Nope.
like something would happen, it was cringe, and then Brandy would kind of bring it back up or kind of like okay, so I'm gonna go over here, and it's like you
Yep.
could just pretend like it didn't happen. Like this is live, right?
Yeah.
But people are saying that it's intentional shade, and I don't necessarily think so because what they were doing, like when they would mention like, I worked with Babyface when I was 12, and I did this and that, was essentially what all the Versus people have been doing.
Yeah.
They give you backstories on records, and because that's part of the appeal. Like you learn stuff about these artists. You might find out, you might hear songs that you didn't even know they were a part of. Like maybe they wrote for somebody or whatever. And so
Mhm.
the backstories are cool. So I didn't see it as a stunt to be like I worked with Babyface, because then especially knowing that Monica worked with him too. You know what I mean? Um, so I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as like two different personalities kind of clashing on
Yeah.
on live, and then the fact that the music's really loud and they can't really hear each other. Um, that added to the confusion because Brandy would whisper something, or not whisper, but she would kind of say something before a record was getting ready to finish or something, and Monica would be like, what? And then when the music stopped, she would still be like, what did you say? And she's like, never mind, like let's just move on. um
Yeah.
Hilarious. But
It
beyond
was.
that, the music was great too.
Yep. I was really like I just couldn't wait to kind of just experience those songs again because those songs are nostalgic and they bring up like our middle school years and stuff,
Yeah.
and so there's just so many emotions and memories that I have that go along with those songs and just with the music in general, and at the same time it's kind of nice to see them out of their element because if you didn't really know Brandy or Monica outside of their music, you kind of got to see their interaction and kind of the way that they behave. And
Right.
at the end of the day, Brandy is Ray J's sister. They're like the same person. They're mad corny. Like I remember when I used to think that Brandy was like normal and Ray J was a hot mess. And then I kind of realized that they're both kind of like hot mess. I mean, no, Ray J's a real hot mess. Like, let's just be honest. He's a hot mess. Brandy is completely she's respectable, and then can also be hot messy because you got to watch their reality shows. Like, if you ever watched their reality show when it was like the both, it was their family. It was
No.
the Norwood family reality show that
Wow.
came on a long time ago. I watched that show, and I remember watching that show and being like, Brandy, I didn't know you were
She seems fun to be around. I will say that. She seems like
yeah,
we have a good time. We would definitely have a good
yeah.
time.
I think she's fun. I think she's entertaining for real, for real. Like if you were friends with her, she would make you she honestly, okay. Your sister-in-law, my cousin. She reminds me of Geraldine sometimes, but like
Mm.
a ratchet version. Ratchet because Brandy's ratchet. She really is. But
She's
you know
like
how
sophisticated ratchet. She's like
yes,
it's not it's the good kind. It's the good kind.
yes, it's a good time, the good kind. And you know how like when Geraldine makes those jokes and she'll be like, you know, like she makes the best jokes because they're like long-winded sentences, and and it's a joke, and she's like, yeah, because you really did think about that, didn't you? And it just reminds me of, like Brandy, because Brandy does the same thing, but she'll be like, come on, bro, man, didn't you think about that? Like, and she makes these faces. So I know nobody can see our faces, but I just made a face.
Yeah.
But
And I think
I enjoyed that.
yeah, it was she definitely added uh she brought the party. Apparently her and her entourage, because they were like, cheering and stuff
I
uh
heard them.
on the
I was
side.
into
And I think
it.
I think Monica was cool too. I think she might have been a little I can't speak to her personality. She
Hmm.
seems a little bit more reserved, and I think I'm not sure which one is older, but she
Oh
seemed
no.
like to be the older cousin, who is
Yeah.
not afraid to tell you the truth, and
Yeah.
who will be real with you 100%, but might
Yeah.
not get all the jokes. And so
Mhm.
I don't think that Monica is standoffish or was mean or anything.
Mm-mm.
But I think just like she wasn't ready. Like I think it was more so we're going into verses and this is going to be a thing. I'm going to show that I can hang with Brandy because a lot of people think I'm going to get blown out of the water. And Brandy's like,
Mm-mm.
celebration. Like she was like rocking back and forth with her,
Mhm.
Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
you know, vibe or whatever. And, so I think it was just, I think if they spoke beforehand, and I don't know if they did, I think things would have
Yeah.
been a little bit smoother. Like, I'm just going to have fun. Because there was at one point
Yeah.
where Brandy was like, are you having fun? And Monica's like,
Yeah.
she was like, I'm enjoying myself. And you can, like, even in the way they responded, like, fun and enjoying yourself. Like, yeah, there's a level
There's
there.
tension.
There's a difference.
If
um,
everybody knows, I hope everybody knows. Apparently, the story is Monica punched Brandy in the face a long time ago. Apparently, at like one of the award shows.
wow,
Okay.
really?
So like their beef is not just like I remember people saying long time ago, like when we were younger, not like young, but like younger than we are now, because we're like 90. But like back then they were saying like, oh yeah, Brandy is this like clean, polished, da da da, like stands up, oh yeah, she acts, she does this, she's this kind of talented. And then like Monica was like brash and hood. And I never knew that. I didn't get any of that from either of them. I always thought that Monica was polished and Brandy was polished. I just thought they were two polished girls, and then they were both really talented in their own segments, and they had different voices, and then oh yeah, put them together. This is great. This is awesome, right? But apparently like at putting them together ended up making them competition, because the way systemic racism works is that black women can never share a platform. Black women always have to argue, which is like why you can't have more than one good black female rapper. It's this literally the same thing. And I want to bring attention to that in a manner in which, please, people start to realize that there is an issue here. It's like here you had Brandy and Monica, who are both extremely talented in their own right, and then all of a sudden they were pitted against each other. And that's the
Mm,
same thing with you know black female rappers. Whereas you can have black male rappers who are all sitting on the top together being like, yeah, but then it's like as soon as you have talented females in a certain thing, then it's like, oh, they have to all of a sudden like hate each other. There's like, all of a sudden this rivalry, and it's like, what? Like, I just didn't understand it. I'm being honest, I didn't understand. I was like, what rivalry? But the boy is mine was like the best song ever. So then, like, some years or some time goes by, and I don't know. They said that Brandy and Monica were at something and they were supposed to perform together that night, but then I don't know.
Yeah,
Monica was Brandy stuck up, and then Brandy was like, Monica's a hood rat and she ratchet, and then Monica punched her in the face.
I'm reading this now as you're speaking about the VMAs, and they were before they actually went on to perform. They I guess they got
Yep,
into a tussle,
yep.
which is unfortunate. It's like like and granted, I don't know what happened because everyone they send out like press release or saying that nothing happened, but
Hmm.
people who are there apparently are saying it did happen, and
It did happen.
at the very least, I'm like, you know what, you guys are older and maybe you've outgrown whatever is whatever. Because even they
Hmm.
talk about how, and there's a part, and I thought this was funny. There was a part during the verses where Monica was like, I kick in doors. I used to do
Yes,
that. And Brandy was like, yeah, you kind of kicked them in on me. And she was like, why would you say that? It's like,
yes,
Brandy is like, it's in the past. It's funny. Monica's like, don't say that. Like, don't
yes,
we got over. You know what I mean? And so I'm thinking like she meant like, we had an argument, and you shouldn't put yourself in that position where I'm actually hitting someone. And apparently they did hit each other. Like, okay.
yeah.
Um, I'm
Hmm.
glad they were able to they were able to do the verses without hitting each other. Hopefully things are going well. They did announce they Brandy high key low key announced a tour, so they're going to be making money together. When I don't know how if this is going to be like a you know like a masked everyone 6 feet
Mm.
type of thing, or if they're going to do a tour once Corona's hopefully done. But
Yeah.
it's cool to hear that things are seemingly better. I think maybe they should have because like I said, they should have spoke because they said how this is the first time they've seen each other in years.
In years,
So
yeah.
you don't just go from punching people to hanging out. Like that's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to. I mean,
Right.
we need to sit down and talk first. Like we can't just.
So there was supposedly like this. So a few years ago, I don't remember if it was like 2018 or 2019. Like whenever that information was released, like
Right.
where because there's an eyewitness to the and the
Yeah.
eyewitness is the one who said, and this just happened like a year or two ago, where they're like, no, it really did go down. It was a rumor before, but I'm telling you, I was there, and Monica punched Brandy in the face. Like,
Yeah.
and
Apparently
so
he was I think a producer or something was talking about it, and
something. And the thing
hmm.
is, so it's like Brandy and Monica hadn't really talked in a long time, and there had apparently maybe been an occasion where they tried to bring them together several years ago, and then it just didn't work. It just fell apart, and they like really don't get along, and they just don't talk to each other. They never really talked anything out. And then this whole thing resurfaces again like a year or two ago. And then you know what? They hashed it out. And then there was stuff about it on TV. They were like, oh yeah, they hashed it out. They're fine. They're fine. They're good. So this Brandy versus Monica thing was kind of like, oh, now they're proving to us that they really have worked out whatever difference that they really did have, right? And
Right.
so I think that's people were really excited for that. And then they get on, and it's like you're 20 seconds in, and it already seems like the shade is dropping. So for people who are familiar with their animosity, it was very like, oh shit. Like honestly, because
Okay.
I was cringing because like I was hearing what Brandy was saying, and it was like, yeah, yeah, she's being herself, she's being goofy, she really is a goof. Like she really, her and Ray J are really alike. Okay, like, and then Monica was kind of like that, like, are you trying to punk me? Are you punking me? Are you trying to punk me? Are we like, I felt like, just like you were saying, that she seemed cautious and she seemed kind of, you know, like question, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
like
think
she's wondering what's gonna like, are you trying to do
yeah,
something and knowing that it's live, that I can't
yes,
necessarily respond the way I want, which is why I'm like,
yes,
you guys should have spoke.
yes. And you're
This would be
right, you're right.
so much better if you just would have had a conversation
Yeah.
and because at the very least, if they hung out for a little bit, they could have got
Hmm.
out any type of animosity that was still
Hmm.
lingering, and she could see how goofy Brandy is in
Yeah.
person. And then it's like,
Yeah, because
oh,
those women know each other.
you're just being normal. Like, okay,
Yeah. Because I really don't feel like they know each other well. And I think that when they were younger and kind of pitted against each other, like because they were these two powerhouses for young black girls who were doing music. They were young. They came on the scene young. Monica came on the scene like at 12. Brandy was acting. Remember, she was on out that show Thea
yeah,
when
yeah,
she was like 10 or 12 or something. I don't remember. And then she was on that show and then did something. And then next thing you know, she's making music. She's 14 singing with Babyface or whatever. And and so I was like, you guys are young girls coming up and they were so good. And I don't think they really knew each other. Like as kids, we didn't have the internet back then. We just made up stuff in our head to believe, what we saw on TV. We probably thought that all famous people knew each other.
right,
And apparently, it's like they weren't really friends. They didn't really run. They didn't have the same crew. These are single people. They are not part of a group.
right.
They have their own teams. They have so and they're not like from the same place. So why did everybody all of a sudden just assume that these girls were going to be best friends?
I think it's from
And
the song, from the the boy's mind, and missing the fact that it's just a collaborative effort. Like I
yeah,
want to say they weren't even in the same place. Like they recorded the Brandy recorded her part
yeah,
because it was her song, and then
mhm,
she had already recorded, and then she wanted to get Monica on it because she had heard about
mhm,
her and heard her
yeah,
music, and so then and then they made the call and they did whatever. So it wasn't like they were in the same place. They hung out and
yeah.
then they talked about, what, this will be a great duet, or whatever. That's not the
Right.
case.
They weren't buddies. They didn't run the same crew. So then remember, this is something that I hope people remember who are either our age or older or younger or whatever, and were around when the song was released, when the music video was released, and everything like that. Like, understand, this was Brandy's song featuring Monica, and then a lot of then the real beef started because people were like, "Oh, no, 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 it's Monica featuring Brandy." So it was this whole thing about ownership, like this whole thing about, oh, Monica outsang Brandy in that. Oh, Brandy sang, and it was like, wait, why are we doing this to these young black girls? Why are we doing this to these young black women? Seriously, why are we doing this? It just all of a sudden became this propaganda beef, and that definitely fueled these rising stars, these girls who are getting to the top of their game at a young age, at like 17 or however old they were. I don't even remember. I just remember I was like in high school when that song came out. Maybe I was like, was I a freshman or was I in middle? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I mean,
But
it didn't help that Brandy performed the song, I want to say, live without Monica once. Like that.
but I think she did that because she was mad at her already. Like, and she needed to prove it was her song because people were like, people, that's the worst thing when you hear what people say, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, this is what I'm gonna do, and you're not even hearing the whole picture. You're only hearing
Right.
some of the nonsense, and people are saying to Brandy, "Oh yeah, Monica sings better than you," and this, that, and the other. And this girl was like, "It's my song." And I mean, like, I don't know. We don't know all the ins and outs, and to be honest with you, we really don't need to know. What we really need to agree on is that these women made amazing music outside of each other and together. That song still holds weight to this day. We all watched that video with Mackay Pfeiffer. Okay. That video was the bomb. We all know the song is the bomb, and we waited 2 hours to hear that damn song. I was waiting for Angel of Mine. Okay. Broken Hearted is one of my favorite Brandy songs. So when that song came on, I just got in my feelings. And then, again, like I said, I was already in my feelings and very brokenhearted. And I was just like, and then it reminded me of a lot of stuff, like when I was a kid. And I was just like, can somebody please play Angel of Mine? Why isn't Angel of Mine on? Because that was my song when I was like really pressed on Prince William back in the day when I was young. And I was like, that was my song. So I'm just saying, and it really, really was because I fell asleep on New Year's. Like I was trying to stay awake, and then I fell asleep. And when I woke up, Monica was performing. She performed that song on New Year's one year, and like in New York or whatever. I don't know. I fell asleep, so I didn't get to see the ball drop. I fell asleep in my room, and I woke up, and I woke up to her singing that song, and I'd already liked that song, but I like loved that song from then on. And yeah, because I thought it was symbolic. But moving on, I waited all night, and then finally she posted, like, "Oh my god, my song!" And how come Monica's songs were like shorter than Brandy's?
Brandy's was letting it fly. Like I said, they should have spoke like because I think Monaco's business. It was like
Uh huh.
the way it worked was, at least the rules were you get 20 songs, you play like a snippet so we can kind of move through because there's a lot of songs. There's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
stories and all this other stuff. So she would always kind of cut it. And there was a point even Brandy was like, you should let that play. I want to hear the second verse. And
Yes.
so it's like it was. I think she was just uncomfortable. Um, because I guess she didn't know what to expect, maybe. But
Yeah.
outside of that though, I think she did a really good job. There was a lot of music from her that I forgot was her. Like
Yeah.
again with
Yeah.
her spanning the history of her, her discography, I totally forgot that song was her because her voice, similar to what Brandy was saying, her voice has changed over the years. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh right, you did do that song. For me personally though, when Brandy played Full Moon, I was already lit. So
Right, right. I mean, people were waiting for Full Moon, and I was like, I mean, I like that song. I was like, when Angel in Disguise came on, because first of all, Angel in Disguise is a great song. Like, it
right.
sounds good. It has amazing sound, and the lyrics are good. But I always had a problem with Angel in Disguise because it doesn't make sense. Remember, she was like, she was an angel in disguise. She wasn't an angel in disguise. She was a devil in disguise. The woman was a bad woman. She was horrible. She was disguised as an angel, but she wasn't an angel in disguise. An angel in
Mm.
disguise would be like the woman from Touched by an Angel, where they're walking around looking like regular humans. But then when somebody was like dying or doing some drugs or something, they would come out and be like, I'm an angel sent from heaven. So I always had problems with that song. So I was like, I love this song, but why is she an angel in disguise? Wouldn't devil in disguise work better?
Now if she's upfront about it, I don't know.
But she wasn't up front. The woman was sly. She was stealing the guy. She was making him fall in love with her, even though she was a horrible person and she was doing bad things to him. But he was like completely enamored. I'm
Huh.
like, that's not an angel in disguise. That is a devil in disguise.
So I'm gonna have to listen to it again.
Semantics. Like,
I mean, it makes sense. There's I'm and this is a little bit of nerdy side in terms of
uh-huh.
being a hip hop head, and I can't stand it when like I like songs that are about nothing, and I like songs that have a message. You know,
Yeah.
um, there's Missy party song versus Public Enemy, right? Like I like the spectrum, but I do not like it when someone presents a song and it's really saying nothing.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion, Jesus Walks was a trash song by Kanye. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. I
It
hate
is.
that song.
Um, but like there'll be times where I listen and I'm like, that doesn't mean what you think it means. Um, like Jay-Z said something to the extent of I'm so fresh you could smell me through a Ziploc or something like that. And I was like, if I could smell something through a Ziploc bag, it's not fresh.
Not
Fam.
fresh.
And he killed me on the remix to freaking All the Way Up with Fat Joe and Remy, where he's talking about he takes a line from Gangstar where he's like, what do you say? Lemonade was a popular drink and it still is. But Jay-Z, because he doesn't write apparently, he said lemonade uh is a popular drink and still is. And I'm like, wait, if it is, it already is. Why are we doing two ises? What That doesn't make any sense. You just ruined a really good line from an older rapper.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Yep.
So yeah, that's so I understand my point, and I like Jay-Z. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying I understand when you hear something and you're like, that don't really add up. Like I'm trying to do the math, and you can just picture the meme with like the woman and all the numbers around her head. Like that's what it's like. I'm like,
Yep.
that doesn't work the way you think it works. Like that's
Yep.
not. Yeah. So uh, I totally understand, and I think I need to listen to it again. For me, it was like I guess I wasn't listening to the words so much, and
Mhm.
certain songs don't touch me like it would. I guess it would touch, her female audience. So
Yeah.
for me, it was like the remembering the time, the groove, how the beat
Mhm.
sounded. Because as soon as I heard Full Moon, like I knew all the lyrics to that song, and
Yeah.
it's not rather deep or anything. But as soon as I heard that, I thought about where I was when I first heard the song,
Uh-huh.
and then that carried me through. So I everything else is a blur until we got to Monica's song, and so essentially like when those songs were playing, I didn't listen to the lyrics unless it
Yeah.
was something where like she started with like a snippet from another person's record and then started hers. Then I was like, oh, okay, I
Mhm.
see where they pulled that from. But for the most part, I just kind of was like, I was in the zone. Like, this is great. I can't believe we're doing
Yeah.
this.
It was great. It was really enjoyable. It was really needed and necessary. And then it also gave a lot of people the feels because I was messaging. I mean, I messaged you. Obviously, we were tagging each other,
Right.
and then I had also texted friends, and I texted my one of my friends, and I was like, "Are you listening to this?" She's like, "Absolutely." And I'm like, "I'm going through all of the feels," and she's like, "Me too." And I don't know if you saw, but I kept writing. I was like, it's not fair. This isn't fair
I
because it was
did.
just so. I felt so many emotions, and I was just like, this is life is just not fair. It's just not. And but but it felt like even though there was like things that were brought up just by listening to those songs, there was just this also happiness of being able to see Brandy and Monica doing this. Like these songs came out 25 years ago or whatever, or 20 years ago or something, like
Right.
we're old. I'm 38, okay? 38. These songs came out when I was like 12 or 10 or like yeah, because if Miss Thing came out when Monica was 12, then I was like, I should have been 8 or something. Monica's older than me. I don't remember how
Is
much.
she 40?
And, I don't know, but Brandy and Lillian are the same age. Their
Hmm.
birthdays are just a few weeks apart.
Okay.
So
Dang,
so
Lillian got a
they're 42.
she has
So
connections to all sorts of people.
I know, right? But they're 42, and then so Monica might be younger than Brandy. So then I guess Monica's just like 2 years older than me.
Got
Maybe
you.
I don't know. I mean, we have Google, so we if we really wanted to know, we could find out,
Yeah, we good. We good.
and we don't
The
care.
point is, it was a time ago, and yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
It's
Um,
been a minute. It's the first versus battle that I've actually really watched because I miss Jill Scott and Erica Badu, and I miss Teddy Riley. Like I just missed everything, and
oh my gosh, the Teddy Riley versus Babyface. Technically Babyface won, but the fact that a lot of Teddy Riley stuff is our age, so
yeah,
I leaned to his stuff more, except for the some of the
yeah,
B cuts. I was like, what are you doing? But um, yeah, like and Babyface was on one. Now that was shade. That was like classic level shade. You
mm,
you can actually go watch it on YouTube. It was good. It was definitely good. Um, but yeah, with that note, we're gonna go ahead and close the show. Um,
yes,
we want to say, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, and prayers for
yeah,
his family and all the people
yeah.
who passed away recently. Um, we want to thank you for listening and hanging out with us while we kind of, you know, bare our
Talk through
soul
our
a little bit.
feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of, talk through things. Um, at the, being a show or a podcast from a black perspective, it's cool that we have a space where we can just talk about stuff that
Yeah,
matters to us in a way that we don't necessarily have to be censored or um, really worry about what we have to say.
yeah,
There's a thing called coding where
yeah,
when we're around certain people, we have to talk a certain way, not necessarily because we're being fake, but the idea is that being too much of us isn't. I mean, you don't have to go far. Like, just Google someone, black hair, and us not getting jobs or getting fired or whatever the case may be. Like,
yeah,
it's all over the place. So it's really nice to be able to do this, and we're blessed to be able to do it and share
yeah.
with
We
you.
are.
And so we appreciate you sitting and listening. We appreciate you sharing. I saw people, posting it on Facebook and, um, you know, sharing. via their own YouTube circles and whatnot. So I really appreciate it. For everyone else, feel free to subscribe and hit the thumbs up, and notification bell so you know when content like this drops. Definitely check out our Saturday night streams at 8 p.m. Eastern for a lot of crazy shenanigans. I posted some highlights and they're hilarious. Check those out. They're also on the page. Um, and yeah, just kind of follow us. We talk about stuff all the time, and
All the time.
so there might be some things that you want to, you might want us to talk about. You might want us to look into. There's some stuff going down recently that I'm not going to get into right now because we're gonna save it for next week. But yeah, there's some stuff. To add to that stuff, definitely let us
Yeah.
know. Um, yeah, and you know, share,
Yeah.
comment, let us know
Comment.
what you like, you didn't like, and yeah, we'll be here for you.
We'll be here I want to say every week, but sometimes it's not every week, but we're here
Stuff
and we
happens.
care about you guys, you know? So remember to wear a mask. Remember to visit your doctor and get your cancer screenings. Okay? Please just do it. Stop smoking, people, and wear your masks and don't be a dick and hashtag be kind and wash your hands and your butts. And we hope you guys have a great week. We will see you next time, or whatever Pootie Tang said, catch you on the running con. I don't know. Whatever. Have a good night, everybody. Bye bye.